Hello and welcome to this inaugural episode of Jam TV at RetailJam 2024. My name is Dan Mellins-Cohen, and over the next few videos we're going to be getting deep into the world of retail and technology as it stands today. We're going to be exploring loads of technology and what's new and upcoming. Obviously AI is going to come up a little bit later on, but the first thing we want to cover is carbon emissions. That's something that is critical to every business, particularly retail. So to explore a lot more about that and what's being done in the retail space, I am joined today by Sarah Foster, Fractional Commercial Director at One World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, Dan.
Before we go anywhere else, how about you tell us a bit about One World and who they are and what they do?
Absolutely, yeah. So One World has actually been part of a larger group for some years now, since 2010. And we were originally set up as part of GB Global, a large business that has a focus on logistics and supply chain, but also now property and consultancy, to solve the problems really of capturing data within the supply chain for global trade management. Since 2021, the business of One World is now standalone, and we fully focus on providing sustainable solutions to retailers that will allow them to track and measure their supply chain and give one source of truth. So we're looking to bring about truth and optimization to the management of data in the supply chain, a part of which is, of course, tracking and managing carbon emissions.
Isn't that the case with data? So I think having a single, essentially third-party company that can give you real data that hasn't been unintentionally massaged by internal departments. I think the idea of having someone who can sort of wrangle that data has got to be critical to all large-scale businesses.
And to take the legwork out, right?
Yeah.
Because it's complex, you know, the amount of data that businesses are having to capture now in order to comply with not only their kind of legal obligations, but consumer pressure, and also to allow them to gain efficiencies in the supply chain is vast. So we live in a world where there's probably more data than there is anything else right now. So having a platform, something that can take the stress away of the manual side of that, is advantageous to businesses. So that's what we're looking to build. That is our mission really, is to bring about sustainable supply chains for the benefit of people, planet and profit.
Absolutely. So on that note, and obviously we're here to talk about carbon emissions today. It sounds obvious that it's important, but why is it important to retailers specifically? Yeah.
So it's becoming increasingly important. I think, you know, we're all aware now that we live in a world with finite resources, and climate change is here. You know, the science is there to back that up. So I think there's the ethical and there's the moral responsibility for retailers to really explore how they can reduce their carbon emissions. But as I mentioned earlier, there's also a lot of consumer pressure now. Customers are voting with their feet, and they are actively, more so than ever before, sourcing the supply of their goods through more ethical retailers, and they are actively seeking out products that they know have a lower carbon footprint. What we're here specifically to talk about today is Scope 3 carbon emissions.
Yes, I was going to come on to this in a minute.
Yeah, again, you know, this would be commonplace for those working within the retail environment, but we've got Scope 1, 2 and 3, which needs to be measured. Scope 1 being your direct emissions, so what you can control within your business. Scope 2 being your indirect emissions, so for example the energy that you purchase. And then Scope 3, which is the tricky one, the one that's been a bit of a hot potato in recent years, is everything else in your value chain. And of course, because of the ecosystem of that, what is your Scope 3 emissions is someone else's Scope 1
emissions.
I
was thinking this.
Yeah.
Don't all these strategies that people develop sort of all, how do you coordinate between all these businesses that ultimately everyone must be connected in this kind of web of retail logistics?
Yeah, so this circles back to the One World mission really, of collaboration, transparency, visibility, and having one single central source of truth. Because if everyone did shared carbon emissions data across the supply chain and was prepared to do that in such a way that protected their data integrity, then it would make it a lot easier for your upstream and downstream supply chains to report on their carbon emissions as well. So we've developed a platform that is kind of like a hub and spoke model. So we've got the platform in the middle, and then you might have distributors, retailers, logistics firms, and they are all using this central repository database for carbon emissions data so that they are standardising the way that they're tracking it and sharing data as well, which just makes it easier for everyone else, and of course automating it as well. So the use of technology, you've mentioned artificial intelligence and automation agents, we see this as bringing about lots of efficacy within the management of carbon emissions and tracking data. And we see us moving from a place where if we go back 5 years, we didn't have the data. Now we've got more data than we know what to do with.
Yeah, don't we just?
We can't aggregate it all. And our mission is to kind of move us beyond that to a point in time where we're actually using this mega data for visualization tools and standardized reporting.
So on that note, what do you think the big changes that are going to be coming down the line over the next few years are?
I think the changes that are coming down the line will be governed. I've mentioned kind of consumer pressure, but there is also lots of legislation that's going to be coming down the track
Always
in the
with the regulations.
Yeah, and I want to give a mention to incoming digital product passports, because that really links to the problem that we want to solve in the world, which is how can you track from cradle to cradle is the phrase that we use. So rather than cradle to grave, which is the linear model of, extract from the Earth's resources and then throw away, we're now bringing about this circular economy because we've got finite resources, which means we extract, we use, then we reintroduce into the ecosystem. So yeah, basically what we're looking to bring about is a platform that makes that very easy to track. So this jacket, for example, or my watch, where's that come from? What were the supply chain labour standards like from a governance perspective? What are the environmental impacts? How much of the makeup of these products is recyclable or reusable? Can it be modular? Can we actually build things that are then repairable and they just circulate the ecosystem rather than being thrown away at end of life?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been my pet theory for years that we won't really figure out how to deal with recycling and product life cycle properly until it becomes more profitable to mine junkyards and landfill than it does to mine the ground.
Correct, yeah. And it's not just carbon, we're here focusing on carbon emissions today because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of legislation that's driving the need to capture that data, but we need to think about water usage, and other resources that are going into every product. And we really want to help facilitate that digital product passport so that every product has this stamp of ethical and environmental standards.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to keep talking about this. I could go on about this all day. Maybe we'll have to get you on a future podcast episode or something to go into more detail.
That would be my pleasure.
In the meantime, though, if people want to find out more about One World and what they do and what you do, where should they be looking?
Yeah, so you can find us online. oneworldgtm.com is our website, www.owgtm.com.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much as well for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care.